Life in the Fast Lane, your weekly NASCAR handicapping show, and a little bit of Formula One at the end as well from Andy Lang. I'm your host, Steve Merril, and I'm joined, as always, by Andy Lang, Rocky Atkinson, my NASCAR experts each and every week. We are live 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on Wednesdays here on this channel. And, of course, you can catch the replay all week long on YouTube as well on WagerTalk TV. And, of course, we do have several days until the doubleheader at Dover this weekend. So if you're not joining us live on Wednesday afternoon, you still have plenty of time to watch this video all week long. Also, a reminder, I'll be back right after this show at 2 p.m. Eastern today live with MLB First Pitch. And then I'll follow that up live at 3 p.m. Eastern with NBA Tip-Off. So we've got a lot of sports going. You know, guys, when we started a couple months ago, it was NASCAR and MMA. And now we got baseball, basketball, and hopefully football around the corner. Andy Lang, I'll throw it over to you first. How was your weekend? I know the UFC live show was fantastic once again. Both Rocky and I made some cameos. We got called out because people were asking us too many basketball and NASCAR questions in the chat room. But, yeah, great show overall, Andy. How was your weekend as a whole?
Oh, it's hilarious. That was only our third show. I think we're at 1,600 people. And you know you've made it when you have to block people.
Nice.
So I had to block 3 people. So I was very, very proud. A real milestone for it. No, it was fun. I didn't have any client plays for the NASCAR race. Just had that free play Kyle Busch over Ryan Blaney, which I'm sure we're going to get to Kyle, so I won't do that. So no, we just started doing NBA player props yesterday. I'll be doing those.
Oh wow!
And then we'll move into it got off to a horrible start, but it's long-term play. We'll have some really good props moving forward, and they're selling them for real cheap. I mean, I think the one yesterday was $1. So they want to just get it off the ground and let's build it slow. So that's what's going on. We got golf playoffs start this week. That package is up. 4 plays I love. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you were doing the NBA props actually yesterday.
It started yesterday.
Yeah, and it's funny because yesterday was the first day on the show that I mentioned some props, at least for the Blazers-Laker game. Johnny Detroit had sent over a prop sheet from the Westgate, and I pulled some of those up for the show because, there's so much uncertainty with the bubble for the last 3 weeks and that restart. It was basically like having props on an NFL preseason game. It would just made no sense not knowing who was going to play or when they were going to play at all.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I didn't realize you were doing that. So that's WagerTalk.com. Andy Lang specializes in NASCAR and golf. He now has that MMA live show on Saturdays. Andy, will you be on this Saturday? I got the time wrong last week. I think you were on at 8 p.m., not 6 p.m.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. This takes a long time to build these things up. We'll be on when the first prelims start.
Okay, awesome. So on when showtime is on. That's usually around 7 p.m. Eastern on average, give or take. So viewers, WagerTalk.com and WagerTalk TV for Andy's shows. Rocky, I don't want to overlook you. You've been red hot now, not just this season, but for several seasons. It was a tricky race, obviously. There's a lot of unknowns going into that. You did say after the show, the more you dug into it, though, I saw you mention it on Twitter. You also mentioned it on Andy's UFC show that you were looking at the Roval in Charlotte more for that Daytona road course, and you were absolutely right. They got on the big track for a little bit, and, of course, the reason you're really right is that Chase Elliott won, and he's a guy that had been very good at the Roval in Charlotte. What were your thoughts overall on the weekend, Rocky?
Well, I did have Clint Boyer to finish ahead of Alex Bowman as my premium play. That won. So I'm now 83-43, 66% last 3 years with all my NASCAR picks. Pick here was a loser. I did say that Chase Elliott would win the race, and he did.
Yep.
I also said Martin Truex Jr. would finish in the top 3, and he did. So got that right. Daytona road course, it was interesting. Like I said, it was more like the Charlotte Roval than the traditional road course tracks. Watkins Glen, Sonoma. Did a little research after the show. Actually, I probably should have done it before the show, but after the show, and I saw that they got on the high banks there for a little bit, so you had to factor that in as well. Kyle Busch, he had troubles early on. He was trying to overdrive early. Not sure why he was doing that. He had a fast car. He flat spotted his tires. Had a very fast car. No need to do that, especially early in the race like he did. That's how he drives. Harvick finally had a bad day. He got spun out, actually came back, ended up finishing 17th. Chase Elliott winning stage 1 and the race. Hamlin won stage 2. Clint Boyer was my long shot. He finished a solid 6th place. So overall, good weekend for me.
And something that jumped out to me, guys, as I was watching this and realized, Rocky, as you said, how much more it was like the Roval than I was expecting as well when we did the show last week, because I hadn't dug into it a lot yet either with all the unknowns of the track. Don't forget, viewers, that the Roval is part of the second stage of the playoffs, or actually, I guess the third stage, the stage before the finals. In fact, if you look at it exactly, it is it's the last race in the second stage, because then they've got 3 more after that before Phoenix. So I think we don't talk a lot about future odds, and I've said automatically, how like Hamlin and Harvick are almost locked into the second or third stage, and that they're both very good on flat tracks like Phoenix, which is now the championship. It's been Harvick's best track maybe over his career. So it was hard to go against Harvick because he's almost a certainty to be in the Final Four and then be the favorite in the final race. Hamlin's going to probably be a close second. But I would have to say now, with Elliott having a good season overall and the fact he's dominating these road courses in the Roval, Chase Elliott's got a really good chance now to be in that Final Four as well, from a future perspective, because the Roval is one of the championship races. Andy, your thoughts on that and just the Roval overall this past weekend? I was thinking initially we wouldn't spend much time on the recap because it's a strange road course, but they actually will race at the Roval in the playoffs here coming up, something we can use some data from this maybe.
Yeah, I was really surprised last week when you guys I was talking about the Roval, and you guys were like, well, the road courses. And I was like, God, maybe I looked
Andy, I will say this, and maybe Rocky heard the same thing, because I had not looked at that video you mentioned. I thought you said it wasn't on the main track at all. They added the chicane, I heard you say, but I didn't realize they went up on the banking of the track.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
I just missed that as well. So I'll be honest, I was being lazy. I listened to Andy Lang, and I misheard what Andy said.
Yeah, I know what I watched, didn't I? Like, or did I fall asleep and miss them? No. Yeah, that was I don't like those courses. I think they're hokey. I think only the top guys can pass. What do you do at a pit stop to change the setup in your car? Like, it's hard. I'm not a fan. It does make for some good racing. The restarts are awesome. There's no doubt about that. But like we saw, once somebody got out front, there's no coming into a pit stop to make an adjustment and catch up with the leader like you do on an oval. Because I need to be faster on the big bank turns, but then we suck when we're on the road course. Okay, set up their pressure for the road course, and then we're really slow. So as far as excitement, it's kind of exciting to watch, but honestly, not too much passing, just because the faster cars, and especially now with how they're doing, how they're starting them. The fast cars are starting up at the front unless there's an accident. So you're getting the fast cars that don't really have to pass anybody, coming from behind. So it is what it is. I think it's harder to bet on tracks like that. So maybe that's why I'm not a big fan of it. But
I'll tell you what, though, it's something that it's going to be a cutoff race in the in fact, if you look at that second stage, it's Vegas, Talladega, and the Charlotte Roval. So you've got a restrictor plate track and then a Roval as your second and third race before a cutoff to go into that final stage of 8, I guess is what it would be after that. NASCAR is not playing around with that. Just having a restrictor plate in general in the playoffs is kind of ridiculous. I mean, they do that on purpose, I think, for the randomness. They, of course, make that the middle race because they don't want that to be the eliminator race. But now we've got a Roval as an eliminator race. And as Andy said, if you're not starting up front, you're at a real disadvantage going into that final cutoff stage, which is kind of unfortunate in a way. Denny Hamlin, close second. He was catching up to Elliott at times there in those final laps. He's been great all season. Elliott now, I believe, is at 3 straight road course wins, and he's won 3 out of, I think, 4 of his 8 career wins are on road courses, which is really surprising because he's a good oval racer. I mean, we've seen him blow several win opportunities this year. And don't forget, guys, he's in the old 24 car, basically, of Jeff Gordon. I mean, he was in the 24, now he's in the 9, and Gordon was dominant there. So Elliott's a guy to watch for many years. I think he will definitely win a championship sooner than later once he gets his act together. Rocky, any other thoughts on the weekend? I mean, Ryan Blaney was starting way back. Andy and I both like Kyle Busch over him for that reason. We'll get to Busch here in a second, I'm sure, with the Ricky Stenhouse Award. But Rocky, any final takeaways that you might look at for the Charlotte Roval in the future?
Not really. What surprised me, one thing that surprised me, I did a free video play for WagerTalk Sports Memo. I give out Ryan Newman over McDowell. Newman was starting pretty, I think, and McDowell back in 30th. And McDowell made his way through. I mean, he come up, I want to say, finished top 10. That was a surprise to me as far as him making his way through the lineup there, making it to the front. So just Kyle Busch, just overdriving. He's got to chill out, but that's how he does.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Andy, before we get to the Ricky Stenhouse Award nominees, and obviously we're all going to have Kyle Busch on there for several different nominees, probably for Kyle Busch, several different reasons. But what are your thoughts on Kyle Busch going forward? We keep saying you got to be careful, you can't use him. And then we go to Dover here in a moment. We'll talk about Dover, but it's not even necessarily one of his top tracks. And every week we've been at one of his top tracks, including a road course in which he had run the 24 hours. I mean, is it just stay away from Kyle Busch at this point?
Yeah, it is stay away. I mean, Chase Elliott won, but if this was hockey, I think you could say Kyle Busch and Martin Truex with that penalty in the pits gave him the assists. Because
you got points.
I mean, yeah, that was because Kyle and Truex were really, really fast, and Truex getting up to third was pretty impressive. He's pushing. You can see that he was just anxious and pushed it way too hard. He's never been a patient driver. It's been his Achilles heel, but that's just it's his DNA. That's how he drives. He struggles at Dover because you have to save your tires and save your brakes at this track. This is a track that is brutal on your brakes and your tires. I was reading that when you come out of the turn at Dover, you have 3 seconds on the straightaway before you start braking to go into the next turn. So it's this big banked track that requires a lot of patience. And being the fastest guy on the track is not always the best thing at Dover because sometimes you need to save your car, and he's never been able to do that. He's never been good at that. So it was unfortunate because I thought he was going to win. When it first started out, I thought, well, this is Kyle's race. He looks like he has it, and then just so dumb. So.
Yeah, I was actually kind of kicking myself going into the weekend that I didn't pump Kyle Busch more in some of the other radio shows I did during the week, because it was going to kind of look brilliant when he finally gets that win when everyone's written him off. And I'd said the same thing, Andy. The more I looked at this race, I'm like, he's got some experience on this track. It's a random race. He's having a random season. He's going to win this week. And not even close. I mean, what was he, 6 laps down at one point after he made a rotor change or something? That was the second nominee for him. And then, of course, he spins out. And, he gave Elliott the assist, but he also almost cost him the race because Elliott had the thing in the bag by almost, 10, 15 seconds with about 6 laps to go. And Busch spins out and gets another caution. They get a restart, and Hamlin makes it close. Let's get to the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. nominees. By the way, WagerTalk.com for Andy Lang, SportsMemo.com for Rocky Atkinson. They both have NASCAR best bets up there this weekend. Rocky also has hockey. He dabbles in basketball and baseball as well, as do I. Basketball and baseball right now at WagerTalk.com. Rocky, I'll start with you. Throw me out a nominee. I'll, of course, say Kyle Busch. There's several different reasons, though, we could give it to Kyle Busch. But anyone else other than Kyle Busch that you're looking at?
I got a couple. Teammates Hamlin and Truex Jr. got together early. Hamlin had to pit. Didn't mess him up, though, as he finished second. Truex finished third, I think. Like you said, Kyle Busch had a terrible day, overdriving the car early on, had something go wrong with the brakes, spun out at least twice, maybe 3 times. Just a terrible day for Busch again. The only other one I got is Harvick. We don't get to talk about Harvick here a lot. He got spun out, turned around facing the traffic. He ended up with a 17th finish. First time out of the top 10 in forever. Didn't look confident out there in early going at all. He was on the pole. I mean, he didn't look good at all. He went back pretty quick. So just thinking, Harvick had a rough day as well.
Yeah, Andy, Harvick definitely, was a guy that many thought would run well here. And, not a surprise he didn't, but he's usually good everywhere. And he definitely had an off day.
Yep. Let's see. Yeah, Kyle Busch is Martin Truex. Denny Hamlin's tire crew got the air hose stuck under the splitter. And can I just throw out NASCAR?
Yeah.
Did you guys notice they ran 3 laps and then just cut to commercial? Like we didn't get to the 4th effing lap before they hard cut to not even showing the race off to the side. Just like they can't help themselves with some of this stuff. So, like, guys, can we watch the race a little bit? I don't know. New course. I'd like to see more than 3 laps before we start seeing commercial breaks.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, Andy. You're a TV guy. I mean, maybe it's because every year Fox Sports starts with it and they go to NBC, so I'm used to Fox Sports for a while. But it feels to me like every year I like the Fox coverage better. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I get used to it first. And I, the announcers are fine on both. I actually think Junior's doing a pretty good job. Although I will say this, they have the worst voices between Jeff Burton and Dale Jr., probably the worst set of voices ever for an announcing crew. I mean, you get used to it, but man, if they didn't have a background in racing, do you think there'd be any chance they would be on TV radio?
Yeah. No.
You need to put Ward Burton in there with them. Then it gets entertaining if you get Ward Button and talking with the South Boston accent.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's good. There's Brad, a couple people in the room. Brad missing the chicane. Logano hitting Bowman.
Yeah, I was going to say Landon's got one there. Yeah, Landon's got one. Logano hitting Bowman. Rocky, by the way, you mentioned easy money again going against Bowman. And I will say this, though. Bowman was running well at one point. He was almost top 10. In fact, all 4 Hendrick drivers, one guy we have not mentioned yet, Jimmie Johnson was very good all day. Of course, Elliott's their teammate. And Byron was also was running decent for himself on a track like that. But Bowman actually wasn't bad. Hendrick Motorsports was definitely, I think, the best team overall, other than Gibbs. I mean, Hamlin and Truex ran very well, as expected. But it's interesting, guys, because Hendrick was the fastest team out of the restart back in May. And then I feel like everyone caught up to him. Penske and Gibbs caught up to him after about 3 or 4 weeks. And now you get to a course where speed wasn't as important, and Hendrick was as good as anybody. And Johnson's a guy, by the way, Andy, we talked about Kyle Busch having the experience. Johnson had some Rolex series or whatever the race was. He's run there before. And that's another guy, as I was watching, I was kind of kicking myself for not knowing that sooner because Johnson and I thought Kyle Busch would have an edge with that experience. But Andy, Jimmie Johnson, that would have been something if he got his win there on that course in his final season.
Yeah. If you'd have bet against Bowman, you would have won. But I'm glad we didn't because Bowman was good and he had raced good at the Roval, and he moved his way up through the field, and he looked good. And just a little precursor, he was really good at this track last year. So even though the bet would have cashed, we would have been sweating it a lot more. He was much better than he has been. So. Even you kind of look at it money lost, but at the same time, I think it was a pretty good stay away. He easily could have won that.
But then again, Rocky, I'll counter that because, I haven't been on the anti-Bowman train like I should have been, like you have. Once again, Bowman found a way not to have a good finish, though, and that's something he keeps doing. I mean, luck or no luck, you create your own luck, right, guys?
Don't forget, Bowman went a lap down. He had a flat tire, came around the track, had to go into the pits, went a lap down. I was hoping it messed something up under there. I had to go over Bowman, but he come back, got his lap back. I don't know where he finished, but he finished on up there really good. It's just crazy.
By the way, guys, one person I want to mention, and Landon brings up Bubba had a top 10. My wife hates Jeff's good. By the way, a good friend of mine I've known for 20, 30 years is from South Boston, Virginia, and he knows the Burtons well. Kim Burton, Jeff's wife's a great person, and Jeff's actually a pretty good guy too. But yeah, they got some great voices. But yeah, if she hates Jeff, like they say in National Lampoons, if you hate it now, why do you drive it? If she hates Jeff Burton's voice, put on Ward Burton interviews for her and see what she thinks of that. The Burton boys, by the way, are doing pretty well in the Xfinity Series. There's a couple of Burton relatives there, a son and I guess 2 sons, right? Either a son and a nephew, I think, of Jeff. They're running pretty well in the Xfinity Series. One guy I wanted to mention quickly that I had in my notes here, and I almost forgot, was, what was it? Kaz Gala. I got to get the name right here. Kaz Grala, Grala. Finished 7th in the 3 car, was leading at one point due to pit and having not come into pit, was leading for several laps. This is a guy that never made a Cup start before. Austin Dillon tested positive for COVID. They throw him in, basically. I think he's only had like 7 Xfinity starts before this. And he was in contention for most of the day. So Kaz Grala.
I've never heard of him.
I had not heard of him either.
Had no idea who this was. I was like, is that the front tire rear changer? Who were they putting in?
Well, they did put in a replacement driver. Was it for Yaley or one of the guys? and he was the only guy they said that had a helmet and a fire suit that was ready to go.
Yes.
And I'm not even sure that could be a good nominee. Actually, I wasn't even sure if that was for that team only or at the entire track, because I'm not even sure. That fascinated me. And I was like, that means Andy or Rocky or I could just start hanging out and get into these races with maybe some WagerTalk TV press credentials.
Yeah.
Get a helmet and a fire suit, and we got a 50-50 shot with COVID testing and everyone getting heat fatigue. We just got to stay hydrated and ready to go. Because, by the way, they got very hot again. That's another takeaway I had from that race. That's an issue we have not seen in other seasons, I feel. I don't know what's going on. They had some reasoning for it, that there's more day races, that, they're running more races. But these guys, they said they're in a 130, 140-degree oven. And I've kind of been writing that off for months now, like whatever, they're athletes. They're getting paid a lot, deal with it. But and that took a driver out, basically, is where the replacement guy came in. And then finally, Landon mentions Bubba was in the top 10. I did not even realize that, to be honest. Did he have a top 10 finish? It shows how right.
So Jimmie says he races in Xfinity in the trucks. I don't watch the Xfinity in trucks, so that would be why I haven't heard about it. We got a lot of Xfinity and truck fans in here, though. That's a popular everything. Can I throw out how awful Ryan Blaney was?
Yes.
He was, really bad. And it's really frustrating when you bet on Kyle Busch over him, and that should have been an easily cashed ticket. But Ryan Blaney he does these things kind of towards the end of the race to blow it. And he has these tracks that he ends up really fast on. And then he's got these tracks where his career is really showing what tracks he's good on and what he's not. He's becoming a horse for the course type of driver, in my opinion. I will definitely be betting against him the next Roval, and I'll also be maybe going back and seeing what happened at some of the road courses. But don't forget he won
the other Roval though after Chase Elliott, didn't he? And I think it was a little bit of a misleading win. He won the October one, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember he won the other Roval. Yeah, so that sums up what you're talking about, Andy. I mean, he finishes awful or he wins the damn thing. I mean, there's no in between with him.
Yeah, he was really bad. I'll have to go back and look because I do not remember that one. But that might be something to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was a little hesitant on that head-to-head matchup. The only reason I liked Kyle Busch over him was because Blaney was starting so far back, but Blaney had won at the Roval. But I don't think, from my recollection, that he dominated that race. It might not have been a real, true win. Like Elliott's dominated some of these races that he's won. I had some notes here, guys. So many I had to write them down for the different reasons Kyle Busch is going to win this week. Flat spots the tires on lap 3 after taking the lead right before that. Rotor change, I believe it was a rotor change. He was 6 laps down after that. And then he brings out that caution, of course, as I mentioned, with 6 to go as Elliott has the win in the bag. And then that would have helped, by the way, his teammate Hamlin or Truex. So I don't think he did it on purpose. I think he was totally out of control at that point. But his 2 teammates were the 2 that benefited from that, and it almost screwed Elliott. And the other thing, too, Christopher Bell's one other one. I knew there was one other one that I mentioned. He spins in the final stage restart. He spins out and causes a big caution. And remember the week before he was running top 10 consistently, and I mentioned he goes down to the pits and he's 10 or 15 spots out then when he comes back out. Christopher Bell is another guy I think it'd be very tough to use in any matchups in the future. He's a true rookie and he's showing it. Unlike guys like Custer who have actually won a race and Reddick who's been very consistent. Christopher Bell just all over the place right now the last couple of weeks, at least from what I've seen.
Good stuff.
Had Kyle Busch won it this year, Andy?
Has he won this year?
No, has he won I know he hasn't won. Has he won the Ricky Stenhouse award?
Oh, easily. That was I didn't even have to check.
No, had he won it previously this year?
Oh, had he won it previously? No.
Oh, okay, that's what I was wondering. I couldn't remember.
So no, yeah. And what a surprise! He blew a rotor, a brake rotor.
Exactly. That's a wear and tear.
Overcooking it in the corner as he blows a rotor. Of course he did.
I think the biggest surprise, though, is that he had not won the Ricky Stenhouse Award because he's having a terrible season by all standards, and he's the defending Cup champion. He's got to be very careful now, by the way, guys, because he really has to look at making it on points.
Yeah,
like one of the announcers said, if we have another upset winner, because we've had Austin Dillon and we've had Cole Custer now take 2 spots away, basically. Although Austin Dillon, I think, would have gotten in on points, but still, if another guy wins a race that's not in that winning streak, that's not in that, ahead of him right now, then Busch would only be like 40 or 50 points from the cutoff. Right now he's like 90, I think. But you take one guy out in that gap there, and he's like one race away maybe from falling out with another bad showing. So I think from a win perspective, although he needs to win and he's in, so who knows with Kyle Busch. In fact, I'll segue into this one, Rocky. Let's look at Dover. I mean, Kyle Busch is not on my radar this week because it's Dover and because I just don't trust him anywhere right now. Is he one of your top threes, Rocky, for Dover?
Kyle Busch is not one of my top threes for Dover. He don't really run good here. I mean, he's having a terrible season. I'm going to kind of steer away from him right now, but there's one guy who is on my radar. I'm going with Kevin Harvick.
What?
Shaka.
Hey, coming off a bad race, first bad race in a while. He's got 2 wins here, 8 top 5s, 19 top 10s in his 38 career races here in Dover. Average finish 13.7 at this track. Despite a down day at the Daytona road course, Harvick is still the #1 driver the past 10 races with a 4.1 average finish, 4 wins, and 9 top 10s in those 10 races. Harvick has 1 win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s the past 6 races here in Dover. He has a 3rd best average finish during that time at 6.8. I'm going with Harvick to bounce back here and win this one on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about having Harvick, but as you know, he's a look at almost every track. And when the filter I use for him is basically, is he coming off a bad performance? And he is this week. So around 4-1, definitely no disagreement from me on Harvick. Andy, what are your thoughts on Dover?
Well, I can't believe Rocky took my guy in Harvick. No, I'm just kidding. So when you look at this, Truex runs good here, but he just I don't know what it is with that guy. There's so many mistakes. It just feels like this is not the type of race he's going to win. It just feels like he's going to do something to not win. And I do have to say, the other funny thing, when you start pulling up track history, you're looking at the top 5 guys, and all of a sudden Daniel Suarez pops up as being really good at this track the last 4 times. You don't expect to see that name. I think in a race that requires saving your tires, taking care of your car, if you're looking outside of Harvick and Truex, to me, this just has the whiff of a Brad Keselowski win. He's pretty good here. His average, the interesting thing about Brad is his average finish here the last 4 years is 10.8, but his average run while on the lead lap is 6.6. That's 3rd best. So he runs good. He runs better than the finishes have indicated. And this just feels like one of those races where Brad is hanging around, and all of a sudden he's in the lead. So I have some numbers to back it up, but it just has that Brad feel, like what he did with Bristol earlier this year. I'm going to be looking at Brad Keselowski to have a good race.
And you're getting 14-1 now. I mean, he's not one of the top 3 or 4 guys even this week, but he's always one of the 2 or 3 most consistent guys. And, you know, he's always in contention. So I have a feeling some head-to-head matchups, you probably like him as well, even maybe more so because he is so consistent. And Harvick, of course, is a great head-to-head matchup guy as well. Rocky, and by the way, Suarez, of course, is in another team this year.
Yeah. Don't play.
You know, yeah, I mean, I know you said that knowing that, Andy, and I just realized some viewers out there, especially ones that are new to the show, they see me pop up 125-1 on Suarez. I don't want them mortgaging the house on a guy that's no longer on Gibbs Racing. When Andy said he ran well here, he was on the Gibbs team, which was the best team in racing. So he has not been competitive in any race basically this year in that new car. But he does well on this track, so he might, you know, if you're looking for a cheap fantasy guy, if he's starting far back in the pack, he actually might have some value on like DraftKings and some fantasy or something. Rocky, what do you think? Dover, by the way, is a 1 mile concrete, pretty much banked a little bit more than others. It's not banked as much as Bristol. Bristol's a half mile concrete. Dover's a 1 mile. Are there any other tracks, Rocky, that you use as comparisons here? New Hampshire is a 1 mile, but it's a flat track, so I would not recommend using New Hampshire, even though they're both 1 miles. It almost races more like a 1.5 mile cookie cutter, I guess. Any takeaways on Dover itself, Rocky, and who else are you looking at?
You want me to go?
No, Rocky, go ahead.
Rocky, go ahead.
All right. In comparison, I mean, Dover's its own racetrack. I mean, concrete, high banks, 1 mile, monster mile. So it's tough to compare. I mean, a lot of tracks, but I'll look at some of the mile tracks, even the 1.5 mile tracks, cookie cutter tracks in comparison. But another guy I'm looking at, and Andy already mentioned him, Martin Truex Jr. I like Truex here. Truex has 3 wins, 7 top 5s, 16 top 10 finishes in his 28 races in Dover. Average finish is 12.2 at this track. Truex is the hottest driver over the past 3 races with a 3.0 average finish. Over the past 6 races here in Dover, Truex has 1 win, 5 top 5s, 5 top 10s, with the best average finish among all drivers at 4.8. So I'm definitely looking at Martin Truex Jr.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I'm actually a little surprised that he is the hottest driver. I know he's been running well, but I didn't even realize statistically that he was. So, I like Truex on this type of track. He's good at New Hampshire, which is another 1 miler. Andy, if you technically look at the 3 1-mile tracks, it's New Hampshire, Phoenix, and Dover. As Rocky said, though, Dover high banked. As I said, Phoenix and New Hampshire flat tracks. So I'm not sure how much I trust using the other 1 milers. I think those 1.5 mile tracks that run faster, almost better takeaways. Do you think this race is kind of like one of those intermediate cookie cutters?
It's so hard. They have some of these tracks that it's just you look at tracks that are somewhat similar and you just kind of try and make your best guess. A guy that I would be looking to support in head-to-head matchups is Matt DiBenedetto. He wasn't very good at the road course at Daytona. I don't really care about that. The previous 3 races, Michigan, and New Hampshire, he finished top 10. And I looked just after the restart. I took New Hampshire and Martinsville because they were shorter. And you look at the average finish, and he's 4th best. Average finish of 6.5. Wow. So when we get on these shorter tracks, he has success. So I know this is different from those, but when you take out maybe those big long straightaways that some of the bigger and better cars might have an advantage on, he seems to go up towards the top. So I'll definitely be hoping to get a really good matchup with DiBenedetto going into this week.
Would you have any interest on him at 45 to 1 to win the race, or maybe a top 3 or top 10? I guess would be the better way to play.
Yeah, I just don't do outright winners. I've never been able to figure that one out, and even the props sometimes I struggle with. But I think a top 10. Yeah. What is he top 10? You got that number in front of you?
Yeah, I'll pull it up here. And DraftKings is pretty good about getting those out early, and nobody else has them right now. But I would think he's plus money definitely in a top 10. I mean, if you're 45 to 1 normally, I'd say he's maybe 2 or 3 to 1. That's my guess. I'll pull it up right now actually and tell you, because I like DiBenedetto. He's been running consistent all season. And for viewers that are new to the show or new to NASCAR, the exact opposite of Daniel Suarez. DiBenedetto is a guy that was not on a good team. In fact, he was on the 95 or the 96. Suarez is the 96 now. Bella's the 95. DiBenedetto might have been one of those 2 teams last year. I think he was the 95 maybe. And he's now in the 21 Wood Brothers, which was Ryan Blaney's original team when he came up. He ran well there. And DiBenedetto is a talent. And right now he's 45 to 1. He's actually 50 to 1 at DraftKings. He's 12 to 1 for top 3, and he's plus 150. I said even money or 2 to 1. I was exactly right in the middle, 1.5 to 1 for a top 10. So I think those are fair odds. Not a lot of value, but I would have liked 2 or 3 to 1, maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, so, I mean, New Hampshire and Martinsville, better average finish than Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. So, I mean, I don't care what track you're on. That's impressive.
And he's been, like you said, for head-to-head matchups especially, Andy, he's great because he's very consistent. He has not had many bad runs this year at all. And I'm looking at some advanced matchups right now. He has Pick'em against Eric Jones, and he's actually an underdog against Kurt Busch. He's even money against Kurt Busch as 2 head-to-head matchups right now that I'm seeing. Rocky, who's someone else you're looking at Dover?
Got to go with my buddy Andy there, Brad Keselowski.
A lot of consensus today. It's good. I don't have to type these odds up as much. I just click and point, making it easy for me. I like it.
Like Andy said, Keselowski's always just finding a way to make it to the top at the end of the race. He has 1 win here, 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s in the 20 races here in Dover. Average finish is 13.1. Just feel like he's going to run good this weekend. I think he's got a good starting spot, 7th So that's not bad. He can make his way to the front. I believe he'll be there in the end.
By the way, he's anywhere from 12-1 to 14-1. He has 3-1 for a top three. I kind of like that. I hardly ever look at top threes because at that point I was like, you might as well just have the damn guy win the race. But Keselowski is so consistent, as we say, and he's not necessarily the best car any of these weeks. So that I think a top three at 3-1 actually makes some sense this week with him. By the way, he's minus 186 for top 10. It gets pretty pricey there. Kevin Harvick is minus 560 for a top 10. He's 4-1 to win. He's even for a top three, and he's minus 560 for a top 10. Whew. I would say the house advantage is getting pretty extreme there between that cutoff. I would not recommend laying 1 to 5 on anybody for a top 10. Harvick either wins the race as top three or probably isn't even in that mix. So, Andy, any other takeaways? Any other long shots? I mean, the Benedetto at 45-1 is obviously a sleeper. Anything else you're looking at Dover?
I'll give you a crazy one. I'll give you probably the craziest one. So I'm still looking at this New Hampshire and Martinsville, and he's coming off a really good performance at the road course. Michael McDowell, his average finish was 16.5, and you can get him at 500 to 1 to win if you think something crazy is going to happen, and you can get him plus 1100 top 10. So he seems to do better on these. I mean, he's obviously not in a great car, but as we saw with how well he ran at the road course, he's a really good driver. So you put him on a course where it's not about straight up horsepower. And I mean, if you would have bet him top 10 last week, you would have cashed at 11-1, Michael McDowell. So I would say if you're looking at a long shot, there's your big long shot.
By the way, I'm looking at one of the offshore books that we all like to follow. He's 1,000-1 right there. So you could double your money by having a second sports book other than DraftKings. And 500-1 is probably the consensus odds. But more important, 11-1 top 10 is realistically what we would be looking at here. I don't disagree with that. I've actually used McDowell several times in the fantasies and DraftKings as one of the $5,000 fillers. And he's bitten me a lot of times. He's either hit or miss, as are all those guys in that price range. But yeah, you're right. And, this is high bank, but Rocky, it is a short 1 mile track. So using a roval or a road course is not a terrible idea as far as looking at back testing. And Bristol only a half mile, but it is a concrete high banked oval. So I think, some guys like the Benedetto does very well, I believe, at Bristol, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't mention that, Andy, when he brought him up, but I think he's actually very good at Bristol. Didn't he finish second there last year in one of those races with the lesser team?
I think he did.
Or was it Martinsville? It was either Martinsville or Bristol. I know he finished second in one of them.
Yeah.
So I'm liking
talking myself into this.
Yeah, I'm liking the Benedetto here a little bit better. And he was about plus 150 for a top 10. Rocky, keep my typing fingers working. Any other long shots you got there?
Well, I don't know what Jimmie Johnson.
Yeah, I wanted to bring him up. Yeah, good. 19-1 at our offshore neighbor, and then let me check DraftKings 20-1. So the sharp book has him a little bit lower than the square book. Do what you want with that information, but 20-1, Rocky. Yeah, I agree with you. Why do you like Jimmie?
Jimmie's running good. I mean, and I'm gonna go out on a little small limb this weekend. I'm gonna say Jimmie Johnson's gonna get us a win this weekend. I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday. I believe this is the track that he's going to do it at. He has 11 wins here in Dover, 17 top fives, 25 top tens in 36 races here in Dover. Average finish 9.9 at this track. Over the past 6 races in Dover, Johnson has 1 win, 2 top fives, 4 top tens with an average finish of 11.8. He's sitting outside the top 16 there, out of the playoffs right now. The NASCAR probably needs him and wants him to make the playoffs. Johnson I think he's 25 points out. He had a solid finish at the Daytona road course and made up no ground whatsoever. I think 1 point or something. He's running good. I'd definitely look out for him this weekend.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought him up, Rocky, because he's a guy I meant to mention earlier, and I might have forgotten to mention him, but he's been very good at Dover during his career. And I love the angle about back-to-back races because, boy, couldn't you see him getting one of the wins here this weekend. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart in their swan song seasons, both were not that competitive. They both found wins. Stewart, of course, got it at Sonoma. Johnson almost got one this week on a road course. And Dover, a unique situation here. They are racing once again, viewers, Saturday and Sunday. Guys, I don't want to throw you on, this at you without knowing. I don't know, because do you know, Andy or Rocky, if they're using this new qualifying format for Sunday also? I have a feeling they are.
Yes. Yeah, they just
Okay.
released the lineup. Chase is on the pole.
Right, but what about Sunday? Are they going to invert the field like they've been doing, where the winner starts 20th, or are they going to use the new? I think they're using the new qualifying.
They're using this new one. Of course, they make their system so complicated. I wonder if they'll have enough time.
Yeah, but I think like half of it's based on the finish. So the thing is, though, the last double headers like we've had in Michigan and Pocono, the winner has finished 20th. The second place cars start at 19th and 20th the next race. The winner in this race will start probably most likely on the pole again, I guess. So from a handicapping perspective, that's good or bad. From a fantasy perspective, it'll be very different, because what's happening in these other doubleheaders is that guys like Kevin Harvick and Hamlin dominate, and then they start 20th and 19th. They price them at 11,000, but then you have to take them because they're going to end up gaining 10, 15 spots. So I do agree. I think they're using the new format for both days. And as Andy said, Chase Elliott starting on the pole here for Saturday. Not surprising. He won the race before. It's basically what it's coming down to. You run well, you start high up the next week. You guys, I want to once again throw out the websites. We got a couple minutes left. I'll let you get to some Formula One, Andy, if you got it too.
Sure.
We got WagerTalk.com for Andy and myself. Andy specializes in NASCAR and golf. He also is releasing NBA player props, and they had a $1 special yesterday. So keep an eye on WagerTalk.com. I have a feeling there'll be some more NBA player prop specials, as WagerTalk does a great job getting that new information out to all the viewers. Andy also has a UFC live show once again this Saturday around 7 p.m. Eastern or so. And if you tune in a little bit late, don't worry. He's on for about 4 or 5 hours straight. That's a good promo right there. If you turn in late, don't worry. He's on for 5 hours straight. I like that. And by the way, you got to get the start time information, because it really moves the odds. I had over 5.5 hours last week because I thought you were coming on at 6. You came on at 8. So the line plummeted to 4.5, and he hit right at 5. So a lot of people got a good middle on that one if they played it early and late. Rocky, of course, is at sportsmemo.com. He specializes in NASCAR as well. He's also got basketball, baseball, hockey, football when it starts. So sportsmemo.com for Rocky, wagertalk.com for Andy Lang. And, of course, I'm also at wagertalk.com. I've got baseball and basketball. Had a 13-2 all-sports run going. It's now 13-4. Do the math. We did not have a good night last night, but it happens. Still 13-4, not bad over the last 10 days or so. Andy, Formula One, you mentioned how the road courses are tough. There's very little passing. I didn't mess much with it for that reason. That's another reason I don't mess much with Formula One. It's basically the top 2 or 3 drivers every week that have a chance to win. What are you looking at this week?
Well, if you're looking at wins, it's basically, do you take Lewis Hamilton or not? And the second race, Silverstone, I said I'm worried about his tires, and Verstappen ran away with that race. And last week I was worried in Spain because it was going to be hot. And I said, I think Hamilton will win, but the heat does worry me. So I stayed off, and Hamilton won by 24 seconds. And I should have known, because Bottas, his teammate, made a really offhanded comment about the heat when someone asked him. He's like, yeah, we made a couple of adjustments. And that should have been the trigger. He said it so confidently. It was like, oh, yeah, of course, they figured something out. On DraftKings, he's minus 195 to win. I keep saying this. If he's on the pole, it's going to be minus 300, minus 400. So, yeah, it's a play Hamilton week. Even if he's not on the pole, it's going to be his teammate Bottas. And Bottas finished 44 seconds behind him in Spain. So it's Hamilton's race to lose. Jimmy asked if any picks for the Indy 500. No, that race can be a little bit of a crapshoot with the style of the track. It used to be a little bit more predictable, but now there's just a little bit too much inconsistencies in the drafting, and there's probably going to be passes in the last couple laps. So I live like 20 minutes away from the Indy 500. I grew up 5 minutes away, and to think that there's going to be an Indy 500 with empty stands is just
criminal.
Mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing. It is going to be so weird. Going to that race when I was a kid was just, it was an amazing. It's 2020. This is what happens.
Yeah, I think the saddest thing, Andy, is that we're kind of getting used to it. That's what scares me the most, is that this is becoming the new normal, and that's what people have to realize. This is not the new normal. Let's get over this, and let's get fans back at the Brickyard and these other tracks hopefully next year. By the way, Scott Dixon about 4.5 to 1, Marco Andretti about 6 to 1, and
that's not good value.
Right? Yeah, those are the two favorites and very short prices, as you mentioned, for a race that's going to be wide open. But yeah, I forgot the Indy 5. I actually forgot the Indy 500 was this weekend. They'd rescheduled.
Easy to do that.
And I saw it the other week. I was like, we got to talk about it on the show, and I completely forgot. So thank you for bringing that up. And once again, actually, thank you to our viewers for being great there in the chat room. Jimmy brought that up there in the chat. Perfect, guys. 45 minutes and 2 seconds. That's pretty damn good because we aim for 45 each week. We're getting the hang of this thing. It's only taken us 3 months. But, oh, that's right. I knew we were missing something. I knew there was something else. All these basketball, baseball shows are confusing me because we don't do the head-to-heads there. Yeah, Rocky, what are you looking at for a head-to-head matchup? Thank you.
I want to mention first, Landon Sports Talk says it's going to be a top 20 invert for Sunday. I don't know myself for sure.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why that's really important to find out. It is what it is, and we can't handicap Sunday until we have the odds anyway. Yeah. But yeah, interesting. Thank you, Landon. We'll have to look into that because I thought they were probably using the new format, but then again, it would make sense that they invert because they've done that the other two. So yeah. What are you looking at? So I guess we're looking at Saturday, guys, viewers. This information can be used against Sunday, of course. But Rocky and Andy will tweak their matchups based on what they see Saturday. It's like having a free practice session. But yeah, Rocky, going into Saturday, what's a matchup that you're looking at?
Looking at Brad Keselowski minus 130 over Ryan Blaney. Keselowski, we've already mentioned him. 1 win, 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 20 races here. Average finish 13.1 at this track. Blaney doesn't run well here. He has no wins, no top 5s, 2 top 10s in his 8 races here in Dover. Average finish is 21.3 at this track. Keselowski's going to start 7th, while Blaney's starting way back in 20th. So I'm going to play Keselowski over Blaney.
I like it. As we said earlier, Keselowski is good at this track. You both liked him in your 14 to 1 outrights, and then 3 to 1 top 3. And he's a great head-to-head guy. And then Blaney, as fast as he's been this year, Andy, he's always hit or miss, like you said earlier. So it makes a lot of sense there. Andy, what's a head-to-head matchup that you're looking at for Dover on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a weird one and a weird stance on this. So Martin Truex is minus 150 against Denny Hamlin. Hamlin is plus 125. I just don't think Hamlin should be plus 125 against anybody, but except Harvick. I know Truex really likes this track. It's not that big of a margin. Last 4 races, Truex average finish was 5.5. Hamlin was 8th. That's only 3 spots. I think the number's wrong. I think they missed on this number. Hamlin shouldn't be plus 125 over anybody. He's been too lights out on these tracks. So.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned him all day, but he's been the second best driver after Harvick all season, if not the best, along with Harvick. And he has been good on 1 mile ovals and 1 mile tracks in general. Phoenix and New Hampshire, he's very good. And then he's been good at Dover. So, yeah, Martin Truex Jr., obviously a little gutsy taking him underdog against Truex because we all know Truex is a co-favorite. But as Andy's saying, look for Hamlin in some matchups this week. He'll be a top 5, even top 3 driver. Hey, guys, great show as always. And viewers, we're back next Wednesday as always. 1 p.m. Eastern live for NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane. Stay tuned. In a couple minutes, I'll be right back here live with First Pitch MLB and then NBA tip-off right after that. So NASCAR at 1 p.m. Eastern, baseball 2 p.m. Eastern, basketball 3 p.m. Eastern. And we're back also this Saturday. Andy Lang's got the UFC live show around 7 p.m. Eastern here on WagerTalk TV. Once again, Andy Lang at WagerTalk, Rocky Atkinson at sportsmemo.com. I'm also at WagerTalk.com. Hey, guys, great show and good luck on both